Hello, and welcome to Nonprofit Marketing with Purpose. My name is Monica Pitts, and I'm your host and the lucky lady who gets to interview our guest today. Now, before we jump into the interview, I have a favor to ask. Will you review this podcast wherever you're listening, whether it's on Spotify or Amazon Music or iTunes? See, our goal is to help more nonprofits just like you have less stressful and more successful marketing so that they can do more of their good work and make our world a better place. But I can't help them until I meet them. And so your review can actually help me change that. When you leave a review, it helps this podcast show up when people are looking for answers to the problems that the podcast is meant to help them solve. So if you are a Nonprofit Marketing with Purpose fan already and you haven't reviewed the podcast, or if this is your first time and you learn a thing or two, leave a review so we can connect with more awesome nonprofits just like you. Thank you so much in advance. Now let's get to business. You're on a mission and you just need more people to know about it. And whether you're brand new to marketing or a seasoned pro, we are all looking for answers to make marketing decisions with purpose. I'm Monica Pitts, a techie, crafty business owner, mom, and aerial dancer who solves communication challenges through technology. This podcast is all about digging in and going digital. I'll share my marketing know-how and business experience from almost 20 years of misadventures. I'll be your backup dancer so you can stop doubting and get moving towards marketing with purpose. Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Nonprofit Marketing with Purpose. I'm super excited to have Cheryl Unterschutz. I hope I said that the right way. I just asked her how to pronounce it because her last name is totally atypical, right? And it's awesome, but I'm so glad to have you here with me today. So Cheryl was actually one of my very first signups for the Nonprofit Marketing Plan workshop that we held at the beginning of the year. And when you signed up, I did this huge happy dance. For two reasons. One, because I had another person that was going to hang out with me that I was going to get to help. But then two, because you are such a valuable resource to my other participants because you have been in the trenches and doing this for so long. I was like, oh my goodness, she's really going to be able to help these other participants in our, in our sessions where we did group sessions. And what also surprised me though, is that a lot of the participants, most of them, what I expected was the overwhelmed executive director or the volunteer or the very new marketer to sign up for the workshop. And the people who actually signed up, I saw all of you as the most super together human beings already. And I was thinking to myself, holy cow, I feel like if I had all of you guys on my team, I would be an unstoppable marketing force. And so I would be lying if I didn't say that I'm just a teensy-weensy bit jealous that all of your awesomeness is not on my team, but I would never poach because that would be really lame. But what I learned through the workshop and talking with you and with everyone else is that all of you awesome folks just needed a guide to help answer some of your deepest, darkest marketing questions, from the evil view of a business marketer. And also to hold you accountable to get both the plan done and not overextend yourselves, because I felt like I said no a lot. I was your backup and support, and maybe even giving you permission to prioritize what you should focus your energy on and what you should let go of, so that way you can really grow and promote your organization. So I felt like it almost felt as much like a mastermind at times as it did like a workshop, because you guys were so incredibly awesome. And so Cheryl is here to tell us all about her marketing journey and making that plan. And she's a superstar. And I just got to be her Yoda for a very little while. So I know that you guys are going to learn a lot about her and all of her experience in the trenches as an everyday marketer for nonprofits. So now that I've said way too many words, I want you to introduce yourself and tell everybody about your role of the nonprofits that you're part of, because I know that in some cases you're the one woman band. And in other cases, you're like a part of a big, not a big team of marketers, but a big team of people. So
Yeah.
tell us about that.
Well, first of all, thank you for the kind words. You were way too kind. You are awesome, and I would love to be a part of your team. I feel like I'm a part of your team already.
You are. You're part of my team right now.
Yeah. So my full-time position is the public relations manager for Central Missouri Community Action, and of course, we go by the acronym CMCA, Central Missouri Community Action, and we're that agency that is on Providence Road if folks are in Columbia, but we are a member of the National Community Action Partnership. So Community Action is a organization or a mandate through a law that was passed in 1965. And our goal is to help families who are living at or below poverty level move out of poverty, become financially stable, develop the skills and resources they need to be successful and self-sustaining. In my role as public relations manager, I, of course, do public relations, which means when the newspaper calls, I connect the reporter to the right program person to talk about the program. I help find families for our reporters and to interview. And I also do some story gathering and writing as well around family stories. I'm the marketer. I am a team of one in all of these roles. So I jokingly call my office the marketing team, and we do a lot of team projects that I share out, from the marketing team. But in that role, I do all of the strategy for marketing. Of course, I do have, as you said, there are about 200 employees at CMCA, and there's a leadership team. And a lot of the work that I do, I work with the leadership team on to finalize and make sure it's reflective of our agency. But I'm kind of the main person who deals with the graphic design. I manage the website and social media. I make the plan and I carry it out, and I make sure I get all the pieces that I need to create products that will market and educate folks about CMCA. And then, of course, fundraising is another part of my job. So I'm the primary and only fundraiser. And in that role, of course, I deal with both grants and individual and corporate fundraising events. If we win, we have those again. And really just work to try to raise unrestricted money for the organization so that we can use that to support families on their journey towards self-sufficiency. Because a lot of the money that comes in through CMCA is restricted since it's federal or state money. But, not everything falls into the categories of restricted money. And when you have a family working hard to become self-sufficient, and then their car breaks down and dad can't get to work, that can throw a wrench into the whole plan of getting a job, getting enough income to become self-sufficient. If he can't get to work, he loses the job. Suddenly that whole goal of self-sufficiency becomes difficult. So those unrestricted funds become our way of helping keep them on track toward their goal. On the side, in my spare time, I also help with Girls on the Run here in Columbia or in mid-Missouri. And I make sure the program stays active, and I work with the board to make sure the organization stays on track with marketing, fundraising, and all of that fun stuff too. So I stay plenty busy.
I'd say you are one busy human being. And one of the things I love about hearing you talk, though, is every time that you explain to me the challenges that the people you serve at the Central Missouri Community Action Center, you always have these very real examples. And I feel like you're very in touch with their universe, and it helps me understand and even sometimes come up with new ideas or guidance or whatever. I think you're so good at that. You're very in touch with them. And that's something that all marketers should absolutely aspire to, is to just be super just have a deep connection with the people that they serve, because that is where it all comes from, right?
It is. And I do really, and I appreciate that you recognize that, because I do deeply care about we call them members. Most folks will call them clients, but I do care about the members, and I have the opportunity in my role to meet them frequently, whether it's just because I do answer the door a lot. My office happens to be close to our administrative office front door, and it's been locked over the past year. So when the doorbell rings, and if the other person that normally answers isn't there, I'm the one that does, and I get a chance to chat with these folks. And then I also get to meet them when I do stories for a variety of purposes. And every time, I just really love people, and I love their stories, and I care about where they're at and where they're moving forward. And I'm a natural cheerleader, so I really love to cheer people on towards success. Thanks.
You're in a good role then, because you get to do all those things in your job.
Yeah.
So I want to take us back a few months, because you did the marketing plan workshop in February. It was February, right? Man,
Wow.
How is it that February seems like a million years ago, and yet it was just like months ago, right? So tell me about where you were before you had a marketing plan. Like, what were the challenges that you were trying to solve by making a plan to enact your marketing?
Okay. Well, that's a great question. So I've been with Central Missouri Community Action for 2 years. And I will tell you, the first year the organization is so diverse. It's one of those organizations that you can't just say, well, we help animals, or we help kids, or our programs are diverse and widespread. We serve 8 counties. So if you think even about that, we have different types of audiences in those 8 counties. We have a variety of audiences of potential members or clients, as well as community partners that we work with and donors. So there was just a lot of stuff to try to figure out, how am I going to share to the layperson that comes along, what is CMCA? I can say that we work to help move people out of poverty, but what does that mean? We've got more than 15 programs, and within those programs, there are multiple services and other programs that are underneath. So it was, so that was what brought me to the workshop, because I was really feeling overwhelmed by that. I had been slowly getting more and more familiar with everything and understanding kind of how everything links together, but it still wasn't fully clear to me, how was I going to convey this out to our community and all our different audiences. And it was, during the workshop, during our personal consultation, which is a cool part of that workshop. I mean, how often do you get to have a personal consultation with the person who provides the workshop? Usually it's the workshop and then you're done and you have to figure it out on your own. But when I got to meet with you personally, that's when it all became super clear to me what we needed to do. And you helped me see that we needed to create the steps to self-sufficiency. Our goal as an agency is, we've got a family or individual who comes in, they're struggling financially and possibly otherwise, obviously living at or below poverty level. They come into the agency in whatever way. There are a variety of ways they can come in. How do they get from there to being a person or a family who is living without the need for assistance, has more stability in their life, is happier and healthier, all of that? That's what we call self-sufficiency. So how did they get from that point A to point B? When you identified that for me, it just opened the door. I mean, I get chills thinking about it, because it's like, oh, of course, you get mired down when you're in the middle of it day to day, and you're hearing about this program and that program, and like, how do I make everybody understand that these programs connect and that there's a purpose for all of them? And sometimes you need them all, and sometimes you only need a couple, but that is what helps. So with Monica's guidance, basically, I created a graphic, and I'm a graphic designer by trade, so visual communication is really important to me. I created a graphic that really simplified the steps that we take when an individual or family comes to our agency. And it's called the Steps to Self-Sufficiency. And I shared it with our team leadership, our agency leadership, and they were all like, wow, this is what we've been looking for. About this. But that has become sort of the base of my marketing now, my marketing plan, my fundraising plan. I mean, really, it's become the center, because what I can do now with that simple plan in mind, that those steps, I can really talk about our programs and relate them back to how they play into those steps, those simple steps. I can talk to donors about how their gifts relate back to those steps, and it was like, wow, mind-blowing moment. It was a little difficult to kind of get that graphic and that concept whittled down. You've looked at it.
Yeah.
Did it be more clear for you?
Yeah. And I actually was in a consulting session with somebody the other day. They take people from financial trouble to financial success. Okay. And they were trying to do their marketing plan right now. And I was like, oh, wait a second. We need this for ourselves. Like, we need it internally. We need to understand what these steps are internally, but we also need to be able to project it externally. So that way people can, along the way, find like hope and validation for where they are and where they're moving towards, And so speaking to people throughout the process is as important as speaking to people at the beginning or at the end. And then internally, I feel like you can use it to have everyone in your organization on the same page about, okay, so we're guiding them to the next step. Like, these are the places that we're taking them through. So anyway, long story short, you had sent your graphics over to me like a few weeks earlier, and I emailed you back and I was like, oh my goodness, can I share these? Because I have my own success path graphics, but that doesn't make it as real as seeing the work of someone else, like their examples. And the terms success path is actually from Stu McLaren. I did not make up those words myself. Like, I went to his training, and it was one of the things that he made me do as his student. And it helped me so much to understand, like, here is my journey, and I need to talk to people throughout the journey. And anyway, so they look great. That was a really long story to say they're awesome.
Well, and I think that's that's why I came to my hope was when, that somebody could help me kind of take all of this massive information and somehow make it palatable and understandable for, like you said, our employees as well as our external audiences. Because even within our own agency, it's hard if you work in one area all the time. These other programs exist, but you may or may not know how they impact your program or how your program impacts their program. And so once we kind of started talking about this concept of the steps, it really opened my mind to, oh, now I know how I can help our employees better understand each other's roles in this journey, as well as share that out among our potential clients and the other audiences that we want to inform about our agency, because we do a lot of amazing work, and it's really hard to explain that to the community. So that's why I came to the workshop, and it really has helped a lot.
I have loved hearing your stories, and now I explain, oh, this is how it works. And they take the whole family approach, and it makes perfect sense. And I actually was explaining it to my running partner on our run the other day. And then I found myself explaining it to our lead developer the other day. It's like, you live in the top of my mind now. Because I just love it. You do such amazing things, and it is so needed. And so thank you so much for doing those things. So I was just wondering, out of curiosity, for my own personal reference, what you consider a plan to be, because some people think it is, like, for me, honestly, part of my plan is like my content plan. Like, what are the things that I'm going to talk about every single week on social media or in my blog or in my podcast? But then also it's like, what's the ratio of those things that I want to provide? What are the events that I'm going to do? So for me, it's a little bit more granular. But I think it's because I carry around all this crazy marketing stuff in the back of my head. And so I'm like making those decisions. And then I had other people come out of the workshop with just a couple page plan that they presented to their board. And they were like, these are our, this is what we're going to do, big picture items for the board to approve. So that way they could just move forward and do their marketing. So what is your, is your somewhere in between, or what is it?
Well, personally, and just in the organizations I've been with, it's always been on me just to create a plan of some type. And so I've always just approached it as a very general, big overview and not a day-to-day or a week-to-week or month-to-month plan. Mm-hmm. Well, that's nice. It gives you a kind of a broad brushstroke of what you want to do for the year. But then what I found was I was constantly forgetting what the specifics were, or I would push it off. It wasn't, because I would get involved. Always something else coming up. So that broad brushstroke, what it lacked was accountability for me. Mm-hmm. And it made it really hard for me to say, yeah, I'm really meeting these goals. I have these goals to set and I'm meeting them. And at CMCA, we're very data driven. And so I know that I need to have goals that I can show I have met. And so, this more hands-on, here's the general overview, and now we're going to move into here's the monthly overview, and now we'll move into here's the daily, has really been helpful for me because I still have my overview for the year, but I'm getting that more granular stuff that you've talked about, which I needed just to keep me on track, because I tend to, like I said, I mean, we all do. We have so many things happening and stuff changes. But what I like about the plan, and maybe this is moving forward from this question, but what I like about the plan that you helped me develop is while it has some details that are pretty granular and, like this day, it's also flexible. It's not like, oh my goodness, I didn't do it on Wednesday. Now I can never do it at all. I can, adapt and adjust if I need to. Because, for example, I got my COVID vaccine Tuesday, my second one. Mm-hmm. So, Wednesday was pretty much out.
I've heard it's bad.
And, you can't always predict. I mean, some days Wednesday isn't going to work for you. And that doesn't mean I shouldn't do what I planned to do on Wednesday on another day. That's why so it has that, it gives me the flexibility I need, but it also gives me that accountability that I need and helps me really have goals that I work toward and can measure and share out to my leadership and to our board. So.
And I don't know about you, but I feel like when I plan further out into the future, it allows me to sit down, focus on what this thing is, do it without this stress, because I know that I don't need it until whatever day. I find that I'm working ahead more than I would ever be if I were just, shooting from the hip. And really, I did not have a very good, workable plan until probably January of 2020, because I was like, well, I'm just not going to produce another piece of content until I figure out that it's the right stinking thing. And that's so I looked at Stacy, our director of operations, and I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it because I think I'm wasting my time. I don't know. I'm frustrated. And so then I was like, wait a second. I have plans. Like, I make plans for other people all the time. Why am I not making a plan for myself? Right. And then I was like, wow, this is amazing. I feel empowered. I think I should share this with other people. But anyway, it's even like our conversation today. We're pre-recording it and we'll release it later because I want to spend more time with my kids. I want to be able to do what I want to do some days. And it doesn't include tying myself to a desk and recording something.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know if that you feel the same way. Like, it kind of takes that, takes the anvil off of my shoulders sometimes. Cause I know it's okay. I have a little bit more flexibility with this cause I can work ahead or not. But.
Oh yeah, it definitely takes a lot of that pressure off, and really the clarity is what takes that pressure off. Because again, going back to where I was before before we figured out that steps to self-sufficiency. I mean, I was just constantly every day feeling like, am I really doing what I need to be doing?
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't have the self-confidence that I was really achieving what I wanted to achieve, what the agency needed me to achieve. And I really feel more confident and empowered, as you said, now, because I have a much clearer picture and I have the steps set up to help me reach those goals without me having to figure them out every day. And that way, if something comes up, I'm not as stressed about it.
Absolutely. Well, that was the goal. Less stressful and more successful marketing. As like cliche as that sounds. So I know though that when you were in the middle of doing your plan, you had so many things that were going on with your work and your volunteer roles. Like you were kind of just like, they were exploding for you, but you still came back around to it and like really buckled down and did it. And so for the people who continue to find themselves in that situation and just walk away from the plan, like what made you decide to stick with it? And do you have any advice that you would give to people who are like they're just not getting that plan done?
Well, let's see. The first thing was, I didn't want to let you down because you're so dynamic. I mean, truly, you're excited. You care. That's part of, when I see someone offering something like this and you're doing it for the right reasons and you care about people and you really do want to see us succeed. You're not in this just to sell the membership to the event. So to me, that means a lot. And so you dedicated yourself and you were committed. And I felt like I owed that back, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But also, I knew that our organization needed this. I needed this. I want to do an excellent job. I want to really be able to share with our community the amazing work that we do at CMCA and raise the money that we need to support the families in the way they need to be supported. And I knew I needed to do this to make that happen. So that's what really drove me to continue forward. But I have been one of those people in the past where I've started a plan for fundraising or marketing. And yeah, I've kind of half-heartedly done it, and then I never look at it again, or I don't finish it. And what I know from that is, what's the point? I've wasted my time. Mm-hmm. I wasted my time doing what I did because I didn't really put what I did into practice. It was an exercise, and you're really not going to get anything out of it unless you follow it through and implement it and learn from it and grow from it. And my goal with this is to, this year I know I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to learn a lot, but I'm going to be better next year. And then I'll be better the next year. And I can kind of tie this back to Como Gives, which I know your organization, your business is a big part of. Man, that first year in Como Gives, I was like, okay, doing the best I could, being a little frustrated because I wasn't, but every year I've been in Como Gives, I've listened, I've learned, I've followed you guys give great directions on how to work that campaign. It has really helped. I mean, there are measurable results. There is better outcome because I'm putting in the work and I am following the steps and I'm doing what I need to do. So if you really want results, you got to put in the work and you got to follow through with it. And this particular plan process that Monica taught us makes that fairly easy. I mean, there's a little bit of work up front, but that's true for any plan. But once you get the work in, then all of a sudden you're like, well, let me check that. Oh, okay, I can do that. And the other piece of it is, and I know we may talk about this later, but one thing that I learned through your workshops was the whole concept of repurposing content and design and all that. I'm sure many people are like I have been, where you feel like every social media post needs to be unique and special, and every graphic you put on your website needs to be brand new, and every story has to be different from the story you've told before, et cetera, et cetera. I used to think like that because, I kind of have that creative, you've got to be creative and new and different. And that wears you out emotionally, creatively, and it takes up your time, and it makes it really hard for you to ever get anything done. So truly one of the biggest lessons I've learned from participating in the audience identification workshop, as well as the marketing plan workshop, are that you can reuse things. And as I started thinking about that, that makes sense because people actually like repetition. I mean, you think about kids, they like to watch the same movie over and over and over again because they know the words to it, they know the songs, it's familiar, it becomes embedded in them, they love that. So why wouldn't people want to hear the same story and see the same graphics and begin to really have a sense of, hey, I like this. This resonates with me, and I recognize that, and I feel comfortable with it. And then that allows you to build that trust with them and help them want to learn more. So
that was one thing that we came across in one of our consulting sessions from the workshop. Is there was a group who they didn't have a ton of success stories already written, and they knew they wanted to start building that, that catalog, but it wasn't there yet. And so the plan that we came up with was they were going to write a success story for someone who had just started, someone who was in the middle, someone who was in step 3, someone who was in step 4. So that's what their goal. And they were just going to write about those 4 families, and they were going to write about last year's story. So the family's going to tell them last year's story, basically. Okay. And then they're going to give pieces of that story like throughout the year. So you're following Carlos for his journey through an entire year, and you're following Mia for her journey for the entire year. And I'm like, this makes me feel less stressed out, friends, because you've already got it. You did the 4 interviews, you wrote the 4 great stories, and now you can share them throughout the year. And I'm like, man, that's just awesome. And we really felt like as a creative team too, I mean, we'll see how it goes, right? I mean, hopefully it goes great. But we felt like as a creative team, that could be really good for our audience because they could get to know Carlos. They could get to know Mia. They could really start to associate this, I mean, I'm going to call it a character because you might even sub out their real name with a person that you serve in the journey they're going for. And then also tying it back to the success path, because that path is not just for your marketing, it's for the people internally and for the people that you serve, right? So for those people who are in stage 2, to see other people in stage 2 and to see people in stage 3 and to listen to the people from stage 1, it's like, yes, see, you can get there because these people got there. It's okay to be where you are because there's people where you are, and look at how far you've come from where you were. And so sharing those stories even throughout with the people that you serve can be really empowering. And we were like, whoa, boom. Major idea. So now I'm sharing that major idea with everyone, I guess. But I was like, this could work.
It's cool.
Anyway.
And it creates investment. I mean, your audience gets invested in the people that the stories are about, much more so if you're doing them over a period of time versus all at once. Like, whoa, here you go. And then you don't ever think about Carlos again. But if every week or so I'm hearing a little more about Carlos, I'm getting more interested in knowing what's going to happen next. And I'm more invested in wanting to spend my time to learn more about Carlos. And down the road, I'm probably going to want to go back and read his whole story again because now it'll all pull those pieces together for me. So
it's like taking the mini-series approach instead of the movie approach.
It's exactly right. Yeah.
They're working. I mean, they seem to really be working. So right now you are kind of in the middle of your journey, right? So tell me kind of like, how are you working your plan? And then like, are you adjusting it as you go? Because that's one thing that I feel like I do all the time. And I always suggest to people, just what, 2 weeks ago, one of my employees put in their 2 weeks. Okay.
Yeah.
So I went to my marketing plan and I was like, and I'm not doing this, and I'm not doing this, and this one's really important. So it's going to move down a month. And like, but that was what I had to do to be able to stay flexible, but still deliver value to people. So do you find yourself doing the same thing in your plan? Like, how are you using it?
Yeah, I'm definitely, and I'm probably not as far along as I would like to be, but that's okay. I'm getting there. I'm definitely moving things around as I need to. Like I said before, if it pops up that Tuesday I was supposed to do this, I mean, most of the time the goals I've set or the days I've set were just more for my own purposes. It's not like I haven't set enough of I haven't used it long enough to have like everybody's expecting this on Tuesday yet. So I'm kind of giving myself that grace right now as I learn and get more familiar and get that rhythm going. But, by the fall, I really hope to be having that momentum of this is kind of the day and the week that we do this particular thing or that particular thing, so folks can start to expect it. For example, like a Facebook Live. I'd like to do one a month. Mm-hmm. And I want to get that going where people know that it's on this Friday of this week of the month or whatever, so that they start to look forward to that. And it becomes something that, they tune in for. And because that's where I'm going to highlight our program people and let them share how their work ties back to these steps for success, and maybe even highlight a client if they're interested, and then that stuff from that Facebook Live might become part of my website or a social media post that's outside of the live broadcast or exactly. So yeah, I've got it all up. I'm working it, but I am adapting, and I'm just giving myself a chance to learn and make sure mostly that I don't drop anything super important. And kind of what it's going to help me to do too, is going to help me realize really what is important and what isn't, and what I can drop, because I think we all have things that we think we have to do, that maybe they aren't really giving us the results we want. I have this great plan. I want to do this monthly newsletter for donors. Well, I think I've learned now I don't have time to do it. Not a real, old-fashioned newsletter. So here's what I can think about. Maybe I can do just a monthly update.
Yeah.
Email that says, hey, this month this happened, or these things are going on, or
and it could be part of your Facebook Lives. I mean, like if your Facebook Live is with this person, they could give you the information about the update in their department. Yeah. That you take a picture of the Facebook Live and you get a link to it in your email, and then you can type up some words for the people who do want to read, because there's going to be people who want to read. And then you send them over to your website or to Facebook to get, what you want them to see. And that pulls it all together, and it's back into you do one thing and then you allow it to do the lifting for the other things. Because I do agree with you. It is a lot of time to do those traditional newsletters with multiple components in them.
Yeah.
I'm always like, I was telling somebody earlier today that I feel like newsletters, in my opinion, and this is coming from a graphic designer, are less about being pretty and more about just communicating. And so even if I don't have like all of the fancy graphics and all these other crazy things and like this super slick layout, if it has a good hierarchy and it's got content that people want to read, and I see them clicking through, then I'm doing my job as a communicator. And so sometimes you have to like give and take a little bit on that, but.
And those are things you have to sort of unlearn, because I'm a graphic designer too. And so I think that does impair sometimes when you are like creating things. You really, you have the expectation to make it really slick. Yeah, I do. Yeah. I want it to look good. I want people to really admire it. And so I have to remember, like you have said, that communicating isn't always, I mean, good graphics can make a really good communication, but there are times when they're needed and times when they're not. And those are lessons I'm learning and that I have learned over the years, especially, even in fundraising, that's true. There's a lot of things in fundraising where you really don't want things to be too slick. It sends the wrong message to a donor. You're spending way too much money on printing and pretty stuff, and you're not really using the money for the programs. So it's much better to use a much less slick way to communicate and let them see that you're saving their funds for something more important. So
taking the best choice method, like the canned goods.
Yeah.
Actually, I always shop at Aldi. And so whenever I go to the normal grocery store, I'm completely overwhelmed. I'm like, I don't know what green beans to buy. There's 8 options. I don't understand this. There's French cut and there's cut. That's all I have at my store. And I just put it in the cart, move on to the next thing. I guess you could get frozen ones too, but they're not in the same aisle. And so it doesn't really count.
You can also get fresh green beans. Those are good.
Yeah. Yes. And I got fresh peas this time. So I got all of the kinds of green things. But anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I just want to wrap this up with any words of advice that you might have for people on the fence about investing time to make a marketing plan for their organization.
Like I said, if you want to reduce the stress around marketing, because there is stress, if you want to really know that you're making a difference through your work, you want to have measurable outcomes that you can share with other people, your boss, your board, whomever, then making a working marketing plan is really important. You can't do it off the cuff. You got to have the plan in place, and you need to work the plan. I mean, that's true for about everything we do in life. Mm-hmm. And the plan doesn't need to be a static thing. It needs to be a living document that allows you to adjust and adapt and learn and grow, and know that it's okay to mark things off that is not working. Don't need to spend my time and energy on that. Let's move on. Learn how to multi-purpose content and activities and things. It really it provides you a roadmap toward sharing your organization or your business or whatever it is that you are, marketing. It really provides that roadmap that you need. None of us can get to the theme park and have fun unless we have the map to get there. And you're not going to have a whole lot of fun getting there if you don't know how to get there. So it's the roadmap. And I've known that a long time. It does take some commitment. It does take some time. It's not poof, magic. Nothing is, but it's worth the work. It's definitely worth it. And I really do honestly believe, Monica, you're a really good teacher. I'm a teacher. Also, my background is in education. I said graphic design. I taught graphic design. I've taught fine arts. I know what good education is, and you do a really good job of educating people in the workshops and just in everything that you do, like this podcast. I mean, this is educational. People are learning things. They're being entertained while they're learning, which is a good part of being a good educator too. But they're learning important things, and I appreciate that very much. And that's why I would recommend folks participate in whatever workshops you provide, that because they are presented in a really cohesive, easy to follow way, but they're also presented with a heart. You back up what you present, you work with people, you help them through the difficulties, and then you cheer them on to be successful. So, you don't get that a lot of places. So I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate you saying those things. They make me feel really good inside.
True.
We love teaching. I am a child of 2 educators. So I come by this very honestly. And it's one of our core values as a company. And even we just had a conversation with a person who's going to start managing our Facebook ads. And I'm like, no, you don't get it. Like, this is, we teach into our relationships. Like, this is our way that we do things. Like, we build trust by teaching. And then eventually, if they need something more, then they can come to us for that something, if that something makes sense, Thank you so much, because that means a lot to me to hear that I'm doing good things. That is the goal, right? And I can't wait to see your journey unfold. We'll have to have you back, so that way you can tell us, like, in 6 months or a year, like, how did it go? And like, what did you change and why? Because I always want to know that stuff.
Sure.
I think it'll be awesome.
Yeah. Oh, I'm excited. And the executive director, Darren, he's excited. As I said, a lot of the folks that I shared the steps graphic with were like, this is awesome. We've been looking for this for years, and we didn't really know how to, again, it's not perfect. Obviously, you get folks who they want all the details, and you have to remind them, hey, you got to step back, and not everybody needs to know every detail about your program to understand what CMCA does. If they want to know more, then we will move them toward that direction and give them more. But we've got to get them interested before we can move them toward that direction. So that's been a really big and a good thing for me to step away, because I can easily get drug into, I've got to give them every detail. And that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, because I do remember that your services they're just not linear. Like, some people do have a much more linear process, but yours were like, well, this is kind of here, but it's kind of over here. And they might come in at this step or this step, and then they might go into another step. And so it was like, well, at that point, we're like in some weird type of problem solving Prezi, because like heaven only knows where you're going next, right? It's not like the PowerPoint that goes from one slide to the next. Yours is, the Prezi presentation where you're like, you click here and you can open up, and then it like can take you to the next spot, and then the next spot. It's more like a website than a PowerPoint. So yeah. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and sharing your story, and for all your kind words. I really appreciate them. And I am absolutely back here cheering you on. You guys are doing amazing, amazing things. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed being here, and see you later. Bye.
So thank you so much for your time today. Once again, my name is Monica Pitts, and you're listening to Nonprofit Marketing with Purpose. Now, before I let you go, I just want to remind you about that little favor I asked you about in the beginning. Will you please review this podcast wherever you're listening? It will help us show up when people are looking for answers to the problems that this podcast will help them solve. So if you're a fan and you haven't reviewed the podcast, please leave me a review. That would be so awesome. I would love to hear your feedback. And if this was your first time, double welcome. And I hope you learned a thing or two. So leave a review so we can connect with even more awesome nonprofits just like you and help them on their journey to less stressful and more successful marketing. Thanks again for your time today. Now, until next time, go forth and market with purpose.